Okay, so for tonight's story, we're going to continue with Prophet Musa alayhi salam's story, but we have to go back in time just a little bit. Well, because a little bit back, because the story that we told previously was about his encounter with the Pharaoh and his staff turning into a snake. But before he actually came back to Egypt, he was away for many years. Actually, he lived in a place called Midian, and he lived there for probably about 10 years, maybe even more, before he returned to Egypt. So he was a young man when he left Egypt, and he left under dire circumstances because the Pharaoh was after him and the guards, because he had killed a guard, an Egyptian guard. And so he had left because the Pharaoh and his people were looking for him. And so he left by himself with nothing and traveled across Egypt and across or around the Red Sea and all the way up into an area in northern Arabia to a town or a city called Midian. And when he arrived in Midian after he had been traveling for many days, he wanted to drink some water and rest, and he noticed, and man, don't worry, he'd been eating and drinking throughout his journey. But when he finally arrived in an area of Midian, when he felt like he was probably safe from the Pharaoh's guards, and he didn't think anybody else was following him or that he had gotten far enough away, he was resting underneath a tree, and he noticed that there were a lot of shepherds in the area, and they were kind of trying to get their flock to a well or to a watering area, a place where they could quench the thirst of their flock. And he noticed that a lot of the shepherds were men, and that they kept kind of pushing their way through the crowds to get to the water. But some distance behind all of these shepherds, he saw two young women just standing patiently, just waiting for their turn. And they weren't pushing their way through, and they weren't being rude, and they just waited. They just waited there until all of the shepherds would leave.
He did it for us.
So then Musa alayhi salam walked right up to the girls, and he said, "What's the matter? What's going on? Why are you way back here?" And the girls said, "Well, we can't get our sheep to the water until the men move out of the way. And we don't have any men to help us because their father, who happened to be Prophet Suhaib, was old and weak and wasn't able to come out and help with the flock." Musa alayhi salam, don't forget that he's a strong young man. We know he's strong because with one single punch, he killed a guard. So he's strong, and to be strong like that, I'm imagining that he probably has to be pretty substantial. I don't think he's a tiny, skinny guy. And so, Prophet Musa alayhi salam offered to get water for the girls. He grabbed a couple of buckets, made his way through the crowd of men, and within a couple of minutes he came back with 2 buckets filled with water. And he placed the buckets in front of the girls, and then he left. He didn't wait around. He didn't ask for payment. He walked away. And when the girls reached home, they told their father all about the encounter they had with the young man. Well, the thing is that there is 2 opinions. Some opinions say that this man, the father of the two girls, was Prophet Shoaib, and some say that it might not have been Prophet Shoaib.
Yeah.
Now, if it was Prophet Shoaib, then he may have been alerted by Allah. He may have been told that Prophet Musa alayhi salam was a prophet. Well, actually, he wasn't a prophet yet, remember? He didn't even know. Or he may not have been told. So it's a little bit unclear. We just don't have enough information. So the father of the two girls was a noble man, a very respected, pious man. And he told his daughters to go back and invite the man to their house to show their respect and their thanks, to feed him, to speak with him. And so the sisters went back to the oasis where they had found Musa, or where they had been in the first place, and they found Musa alayhi salam still there, resting under a tree. So one of the sisters said, "Our father has invited you to our home, and he wants to reward you for helping us." Musa alayhi salam was surprised because he wasn't expecting any gratitude for his service. He was just a good man. And he was surprised that he was being invited back to their home.
Oasis, and we did Oasis.
You're right, we did Oasis before. And in the past, I did Oasis with Prophet Shoaib. Prophet Shoaib. But this time around, we did Oasis with Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So Musa alayhi salam came back to the home with the girls, and he ended up staying many days with Prophet Shoaib and his family. And he became good friends with the elderly prophet. And they spoke, and they enjoyed each other's company. And Musa spent his time telling him about his life in Egypt and the Pharaoh's beautiful palace, and how his people had been made into slaves. Musa alayhi salam explained to him how he had accidentally killed one of the Pharaoh's guards and was forced to flee Egypt. And Shoaib alayhi salam listened to all of the stories that Prophet Musa had to say, and he reassured Prophet Musa and reminded him not to be afraid, and that being in Madian, away from Egypt, he would be safe from all of those evil people. But I imagine that even though Prophet Musa alayhi salam, as a young man, wanted his safety from the Pharaoh, but he also probably wanted to keep his people safe in Egypt and protect them and ultimately free them from slavery, especially if he's sharing that aspect of the story with Prophet Shoaib alayhi salam. There's a sense of wanting to free those people from their plight. One day, after Prophet Musa alayhi salam had been staying with them for a while, one of the daughters of Prophet Shoaib, went to her father and asked him to give Prophet Musa alayhi salam some work. She thought that Musa was strong, and he was, and that he was honest, as he was, and that he could take care of their business. Like there were no sons at home, or there were no more sons, and these girls were not married, and so there were no men in the household to help with some of the things that having a man around to do those things would make life a lot easier, and in some cases safer. And so they said, "Can you hire Musa alayhi salam to do some of the things around the place, around the farm, help with the animals?" And Prophet Shoaib alayhi salam was a little bit surprised at his daughter's request. "Do you know that he is strong and honest?" he said, because she's using those attributes. He's strong and he's honest. So we know he's strong because he was able to get water for them and carry those heavy buckets and make his way through the men. And the girls don't know this, but maybe the father knows, or maybe the girls know too, that he had killed a man. So and he didn't do it intentionally. It was an accident. But for somebody to accidentally kill somebody with their own hands also shows that you have to be pretty strong in order to do that. But how do you know he's honest? Well, the girl said, I know that he's honest and noble because when we went to invite him to our home, he kept his eyes down and he didn't stare. He lowered his gaze. So Prophet Shuaib alayhi salam was very pleased with his daughter's clever and honest reply. So he invited Prophet Musa alayhi salam to stay and to work for them. And he also the father was also picked up on the fact that his daughter was keen on Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And so he also offered to Prophet Musa alayhi salam to marry one of his daughters. And then he said, and to work for me as a shepherd for 8 or 10 years, he told Musa. And I will treat you kindly, he said. And inshallah, you will see that I am a righteous person. Musa alayhi salam had grown close to the generous prophet and his daughters. And this was like a family for him because he had left his family behind. And so being here was like having a family. And so it probably really touched his heart. And he agreed and accepted Prophet Shoaib's request and married one of his daughters. And then they stayed with him, like both the wife and the husband, which would be the daughter of Prophet Shuaib alayhi salam and Prophet Musa alayhi salam, stayed with him for 10 years, during which time Prophet Musa alayhi salam was devoted and helpful and strong and pious and took care of the sheep in that time. So he was a shepherd for that time. Now, after several years of staying with his father-in-law and working for his father-in-law and taking care of the family, Prophet Musa alayhi salam was ready to take his family and move on. And so they said their salams to the family and they set out into the desert. Now they traveled for a very long time. And it was a very difficult journey. It's not the way we journey today in cars or airplanes or on trains, which is still tiring, but nowhere near as tiring or as challenging or as difficult as travel was in the past. There are no places to stop and get food or water. You have to take everything with you. And you have to feed the thing that carries you. Unless you're walking just on your own, which would take a very long time to get anywhere, and you would have to carry everything that you were taking with you. So it is more likely that he had camels or horses, and then you put everything that you want to take with you on those camels or horses, probably camels, but maybe horses. And then you have to make sure that you're getting from one oasis to another in order to get water and possibly dates and other animals. And you have to know how to hunt. You might have a falcon that helps you hunt and that can kill probably small animals like rabbits and things. Or you know how to trap animals or hunt. I don't think there were a lot of big game to hunt in the desert areas, but I just don't know. I'm guessing rabbits are probably something that they could catch and eat easily. And so it was really difficult to travel, and you would have to be on the lookout for the next oasis and be on the lookout for any materials or food that you would need during your travels. And if you caught a rabbit, for instance, you couldn't eat it raw, you had to cook it. And so you needed to make a fire. And so one night, Prophet Musa alayhi salam saw something strange in the distance. And he wasn't quite sure what it was, but he was intrigued and curious, and it sort of looked like something was burning. In the far distance, he could tell, kind of like on a hill or something similar, he saw that something was burning indeed as he got closer. So he wasn't sure what it was. Maybe there was another camp with people somewhere. Maybe he actually needed some fire in order to cook the things that he had trapped during the day, or the things that he had hunted. But either way, he told his wife to wait, and he said that I will see what that burning fire is over there. Maybe I can find out what it is and bring you some fire to warm yourself with. So Musa alayhi salam left his family in a safe place, and then he went to go explore and try to figure out what that fire was. Try to figure out what was going on. And as he headed in the direction of the fire, he felt kind of drawn to it. It was different. There was something intriguing about it. And as he approached the mountain, he heard a voice calling him from the valley. Musa was probably startled and quite cautious, but he followed the sound of the voice. And as he came closer to the valley, he saw that it was a tree, blazing fire, brilliant and stunning flames. But for some reason, this fire did not burn the tree. It did not devour the tree. And even more startling was that the voice was coming from the tree. So it's like the tree is being completely illuminated, and it's completely lit up, and it's bright, and it's beautiful, but nothing is actually burning from the tree. The tree was a symbol of Allah's power, and it was a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was at that moment calling Musa alayhi salam to be a prophet and to guide his people back to the straight path and to warn the people of the day of judgment. Suddenly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Prophet Musa alayhi salam. O Musa, know that I am your Lord. Take off your shoes, you are in the sacred valley. Musa alayhi salam could not believe what was happening. It was probably startling and scary. For a moment, he might have been shocked to move. Probably was too scared to even remove his shoes. And he simply stared at the burning tree. He was amazed at what he was seeing and hearing. But after a moment, he collected himself, and he realized that this sign was truly a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he quickly took off his shoes as a sign of respect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continued to speak to Musa alayhi salam. I have chosen you to be my prophet. Listen carefully. I am Allah. There is no God but me. Therefore serve me and remember to pray to me alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then asked, what is in your right hand? Musa alayhi salam humbly stuttered, It's my staff. I lean on it. I use it to beat down leaves for my sheep to eat. I use it for many things. I use it for walking. Throw it to the ground, O Musa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded. Musa alayhi salam immediately obeyed, and he took his staff and he threw it to the ground. But the thing that happened afterwards probably startled him even more. His staff, made of wood, suddenly turned into a large snake that slithered around his feet, but did not harm him. Musa must have been amazed at what had just happened. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to pick up the snake. And when Musa did so, the moment he picked it up, it turned back into a staff. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then said to Musa, "Put your hand close to your chest." Musa alayhi salam once again obeyed Allah's command, and he put his hand against his chest. But when he pulled his hand away from his chest, it was shining white with a radiant and divine light. Now this isn't a light like a flashlight or a light like a fire. This light is completely different. It's one when you see it, you know that it is a divine sign and not just your hand illuminated. Musa stared at his glowing hand. It wasn't hot, but it glowed with the most radiant, beautiful light. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed these miracles upon Prophet Musa alayhi salam as a sign for those that he should meet. These miracles were a greatness to his Lord. These were blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Prophet Musa. And they were favors for him, because the task that lay ahead was going to be very difficult. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always provides for his prophets. "You are my messenger," Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. "Go with these two signs from your Lord to the Pharaoh and his chiefs," Allah ordered. "They are wicked people who are doing much evil. Invite them to the right path." Prophet Musa alayhi salam thought about the Pharaoh and his kingdom and all the troubles he had left behind when he escaped. It must have been so difficult to think about returning to Egypt. It must have been scary, because all his people back home were slaves. He was honored to be chosen as a prophet. But at the same time, he also realized that it was going to be a tremendous task for him. Now, to make matters worse, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he was really young, he had damaged his tongue. He possibly burned it on a piece of coal, and this caused him not to speak very clearly. It damaged his tongue in a way that made him possibly stutter or maybe not be able to pronounce his words properly. And so he prayed to Allah for help. "O my Lord, open my heart so that I may learn more of your knowledge, and make it easy for me to bring your message to Pharaoh," he prayed. "Strengthen my tongue so I can speak clearly to people." Prophet Musa alayhi salam then added one more thing. "O my Lord," he said, "raise up someone from my family to help me. Harun is my brother. Harun can add strength to my journey. Let him share in my task." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listened to Prophet Musa's prayer and then said, "Your prayers have been answered. I will make you stronger with the help of your brother Harun. Together you will be so powerful that the Pharaoh and his chiefs will not be able to hurt you. Go with my signs. You and all those who follow you will be victorious. O Musa, I have chosen you, and you are ready to be my servant." Musa alayhi salam took a deep breath, and then he returned to his wife. So the story continues. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam returns to Egypt and together with his brother Harun meets the Pharaoh. And we have already covered that story, so I'm going to stop tonight's story right here. So if you'd like to see any of the other lessons in this Islamic Waldorf-inspired main lesson block, you can tap on the screen right now. If you want more information about this curriculum that I have created, you can find that on my website at pepperandpine.com. And if you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at pepperandpine.